Hey you, welcome back to my channel. My name is Vanessa, but you can call me Ness. Today I'm going to be doing my October wrap-up. I only have 4 books here to talk about. That's Heartstopper Volume 3, Spin the Dawn, My Sister the Serial Killer, and Cinderella is Dead. I will put these into 4 parts, so if you just want to see reviews for specific books, you can look in the description to find the timestamps for them below. For me, I didn't read much for October, but I hadn't set myself a specific goal for October, and instead I focused on other things like life and work, and setting reading aside actually really affected my mental health. So this month for November, my plan is to prioritise reading and put myself and my well-being first. So hopefully I'm going to have plenty of book reviews to film during November. If you aren't already, please subscribe to my channel. If you like this video, please consider leaving it a thumbs up and leaving a small comment. Engagement really helps the growth of my channel, which actually hasn't been growing a lot. It's kind of dying. I'm also always looking out for other people to watch as well. So if you make book content, please let me know in the comments and I'll have a look at your channel too. All of these books about My Sister the Serial Killer were birthday presents. So if you'd like to watch me actually receiving these gifts, head on over to a video I uploaded in August, which is my birthday book haul. So the first book I'm going to talk about is Cinderella is Dead. This is a young adult fantasy retelling. Well, not a retelling, it's more of a reimagining of a sequel to the Cinderella story, and it's done really well. I read a lot of fairy tale retellings, but this was done in such a unique way. So this story is set in the same world. It has the same sort of oldie worldiness to it. It's not set in a modern time. There's no mobile phones or electricity or anything. But we are 200 years past Cinderella's main storyline. And in this world, Cinderella is like a legend. She's still well known and respected. And every year, the king insists on throwing a ball in sort of memory of Cinderella. And at this ball, you have to find a husband. Or rather, a man has to find a wife. It's very much a man's world, and if you are a girl and you're not chosen to be someone's husband at this ball, it's seen to be a failure on your behalf. And you only have so many tries to find a husband as well. The women in this world are treated very poorly, and there's very few women's rights. The main character, Sophia, doesn't want a husband because she's actually gay. She has a girlfriend who she really cares about, and her and her girlfriend now have to attend this ball for the first time. Sophia pushes against this concept, and it starts an adventure story about trying to break this expectation and free women in this world. I thought this was a really fun book. It read really quick. What I would say is at times the writing was a little bit frustrating. There was a lot of showing and telling, which wasn't really necessary. I mean, 10% of this book could have been lost had an editor actually gone through this properly and took out a lot of the things that were over-explained. I'm not blaming the author for that. That's purely, to me, down to the editing. I think the author comes across as really imaginative, unique, and I'm looking forward to seeing what else she writes in the future. The characters in this story are really fun. There's only a handful of characters, but that's all it needs. And the ending was satisfying, if not quite predictable, but I don't actually mind predictable storylines. There is twists in it, but I'll be very surprised if you don't see them coming a mile off. But if you are looking for something that is just generally fun, sapphic, I'd highly recommend this one. I would definitely recommend this for fans of the Lunar Chronicles or books by Christina Henry as well. Another point that I just also want to make is that the main character is described as having skin that is brown, but it's never actually explored sort of like any racial issues, which I thought could have been interesting to see how she would be received in that world, in a world that already doesn't have rights for women. But the author never really went there, which seemed like an interesting choice because I would have liked to know a little bit more about Sophia as a person. But overall, I rated this book 4 out of 5 stars, and I would recommend this. Next we have a sort of semi-retelling as well, and that is Spin the Dawn. This is described as a Mulan retelling meets Project Runway, and surprisingly that really makes sense. This book actually has 2 parts. Part 1 is definitely a Mulan retelling. You can totally see where that concept comes from. The main character is Maya, and she is a tailor. She's probably the best in her family, and her dad is also known to be a master tailor. However, he's very old and frail, and he's unable to work when called upon. and the king calls upon them to go and work in the palace to construct garments for the future queen. However, Maya takes his place, but it is something that is agreed between them and he knows that. And she goes to the palace only to find she's not the only tailor that's being called upon. Of course, she has to pretend that she is her brother in this competition, as females aren't allowed to have the role of master tailor. That's where the Mulan element starts to drop off a bit, and in comes Project Runway. So we have about 100 pages purely dedicated to a competition to see who is the best tailor and who makes the best garments, and I actually really enjoyed that whole plotline. That whole part lasts for about half the book, but then the last half of the book is a purely original concept. And that is where Maya has to travel around the country searching for mythical objects to use them as materials to create 3 garments. She doesn't believe that they exist, but she sets off anyway on this adventure. I didn't think that part was as enjoyable as part 1, but I think that's purely because I was enjoying the Mulan references so much, and Mulan is my favourite Disney movie of all time, which is what piqued my interest in this book. So I wasn't really for an original story, if I'm honest. I was just looking for some Mulan. But nevertheless, it was really good. This book was so well written. It's actually really long. This took me quite a while to finish. The detail in it is really good. The world building, the characterization is all very well done. There was a romance in this, and the romance was done really well. Like, it was well built and it was gradually coming along. It wasn't insta-love, really. However, I'm not sure whether I thought that it was relevant or needed in this book. But nonetheless, it was still really an enjoyable romance in a young adult novel. I have been asked did I find this tropey, and I would say no. As a young adult, this is actually quite mature. I rated this 4 out of 5 stars. I will be reading book 2 in the duology to see how this all wraps up, and I would highly recommend this one as well. It was enjoyable, even though I thought part 2 was a little bit too long. Next up, I read My Sister the Serial Killer. I got this for £1 in a charity shop, and it actually is a very quick read. It only took me 2 days to read this novel, although if I really wanted to, I could have sat and read this in a day. This book had been on my radar for some time, but I think what my expectations were totally different to what this book actually is, and I read that quite a lot on this book's Goodreads page, that people's expectation and the reality don't really compute. So I'm gonna give you exactly what I think the book is, so if you are looking to read this, you don't go in with different expectations. So my expectation of this book was that it would be a crime thriller, when actually it's not really that at all. It's more on the contemporary side, and it's about the relationship between the main character and her sister, who is a serial killer and who is murdering her boyfriends, and how the main character reacts to this news, how it changes her relationship with her sister, and it's more so about them and what they are doing and how they are interacting with each other. And there's also flashbacks to sort of their childhood and their relationship with their dad, which tries to go to some length to explain maybe why the sister is doing what she's doing. This book is set in Lagos, and it opens with the first scene where the main character has been called to her sister's apartment, where she has her boyfriend lying on the floor with a knife in his back. And she tells the main character that this is being done in self-defense. And the main character doesn't really question it too much. She just helps her dispose of the body. The main character works in a hospital, and she's crushing on this doctor, and suddenly the sister walks into the hospital, and the doctor spies the sister and thinks she's hot. So this starts a little bit of internal drama between the sisters and the doctor, and this is what's driving the plot of this novel. I really appreciated how short this was because it made it short and fun. However, I do think that this book could have actually been longer and went into more depth about crime, but I really enjoyed it for what it was, and I think anyone who reads this will find it generally fun. I just wish it was a little bit on the darker side, and also I haven't read a book set in Nigeria before, so I would have appreciated a little bit more about the area and what it's like living there. The only thing that really stood out was the corruption of the police and some of the things that the police do. But other than that, I think this book could have really been set anywhere. So I would have liked to see a little bit more about that side of it. But I would recommend this. Again, I rated this 4 out of 5 stars. If you haven't read it, I would suggest that you pick it up. The writing was really good. And again, I'm looking forward to seeing what this author puts out in the future. And last but certainly not least, my highest rated book of the month, and that's Heartstopper Volume 3. This is the third time that I've given Heartstopper 5 stars. I absolutely love this series. I do have an individual review and talk about book 1 if you specifically want to know about that one. It's on my channel, I'll link it somewhere up here. But for this one, I'm purely going to talk just about book 3 in a non-spoilery way for people that haven't got round to reading book 1 yet. So this volume specifically gathers around a certain storyline, and that is a trip to Paris, which I don't know of any school that's ever done a trip to Paris, but that's pretty cool. An introduction to mental health issues, which I believe is going to be explored more in volume 4. And the apparent continuation of needing to come out over and over and over again to new people. I highly recommend this book to you if you're part of the LGBTQ+ community, because I feel like it explores a lot of issues that aren't really talked about, and that is how to deal with coming out in a gay relationship and the worries that you have about how that would be perceived by different social groups that you're in, and what effect that can have on you in your everyday life, like being bullied at school or being talked about. But this would also make a really great gift for LGBT teens if you're looking for something to buy them for Christmas as well. This book is a little bit more hard-hitting than the other volumes because this one starts to introduce things like an eating disorder and mental health problems. So if they are something that are a trigger for you, I would stay away from this novel. But I think the storyline has progressed really well in this volume, so if you were a fan of book 1 and book 2, I would look to be picking this up. Again, a quick read, only took me about an hour and a half to read it, but that's absolutely fine because I love the content so much. And I am really looking forward to volume 4, but I do have a sneaky suspicion volume 4 may or may not be the final or penultimate book. I'm sure this is coming to an end soon, which makes me super sad. So they are all the books that I read in October. Like I said, not a great reading month, but I'm really looking forward to this month. It's already the 1st of November and I've read half a book on my TBR, which is really great for me. So hopefully if this keeps up, I could end up reading a lot this month. Thank you as always for your continued support, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye guys!